Alright, here I am at my post.views.py file. I'm going to collapse the directory tree to give us a little more room. And I'm going to start off by doing a couple of imports. We're first going to say from django.contrib.auth.mixins import login required mixin. That way we know someone needs to be logged in to actually do a lot of these post actions, such as creating a new post. Then we're also going to say from django.core.url resolvers import reverse lazy, so that in case someone wants to delete a post, we have that reverse lazy call, which you can use later. And then we also are going to be using some generic class-based views. I will say from django.views import generic. And then we're also going to be using HTTP 404. That way we can return a 404 page later on. So we'll say from django.http import HTTP 404. Save that. And then finally, we'll say from braces.views import select related mixin. Now remember that you have to install braces as we just discussed in the slides, and you can do that just by going to your command line. And at your command line inside of your virtual environment, just say pip install django-braces, hit enter, and then let that install. Now my requirement's already satisfied because I've already installed it before this lecture. Okay. So now we have braces ready to go, and then I'm also going to say from import models, so that's my actual models for the posts, and then later on we're actually going to create a form for the post, so we'll say from import forms, although we haven't actually created the forms.py file yet, although we'll do that later on. And then I will say from django.contrib.auth import get user model, and that's going to be a function that allows me to set a user object equal to get user model, and then I call get user model. And basically what that means is when someone's logged into a session, I'm going to be able to use this user object as the current user and then call things off of that. So let's start off with probably the simplest view here, and that's going to be the post list view. So once you select a person, you can see a list of all their posts, or once you select a group, you can see a list of all the posts for that group. So we'll start off with the post list class, and that's going to be a list of posts belonging to a group. So we're going to say pass in the selected related mixin, as well as call this a generic list view. And then let's give a couple more lines here, go all the way back up. And inside of this post list, all we're going to do is connect it to a model. So that will be models.post, so our post model that we created earlier. And then I'm also going to have this method or attribute selected underscore related, which is just a mixin that allows us to provide a tuple of related models. So basically the foreign keys for this post. And that's going to be the user that the post belongs to and the group that the post belongs to. And then I'm saving that. And up next, we're going to create another class for user posts, and that's just going to be a generic list view. And let's give ourselves some more room here. Don't want to forget that colon. And then this is going to be the generic view for the user posts. So we'll connect this with models.post, and then we'll give it the template name. So template name is going to be equal to post/user_post_list.html. Okay, now we're going to have to add a few more methods in here to make sure this all works correctly when a user is logged in. So we're going to have a method called get_querySet, pass in self, and this is what we're going to do inside this method. We're going to first try to say self.post.user, so check if self.post.user is equal to, actually this isn't really a check, this is an assignment, so assign user.objects. And then we're going to call prefetch underscore related posts. And remember, we can say these different methods or attributes you can call off objects. So this is another one. There's a giant list of them in the documentation. And then off of this, we're going to say get, and we'll say get the username underscore I exact underscore, or excuse me, equals self dot keyword args dot get, and then in parentheses username, and that's it. So we're going to first try to do this whole giant line. So let's explain what's going on here. Here we're going to try to get the query set. So basically when you call user post, that list view, what is it actually going to attempt to do? Here it's going to try to set post.user, that is the user that belongs to this particular post, equal to user, that user's objects. We're going to prefetch related posts, and then this username, this should be a double underscore. As I described before in previous lectures, we can call these double underscores, and you can see how the syntax highlighting changes. And then we're going to get where the username is exactly equal to the username of whatever user is logged in or whatever user you happen to click on. So we're going to try to do that, and then we're going to match this try call with an accept call. So we'll say accept, and we'll say accept if the user does not exist. So for some reason the user got deleted. So we'll say user does not exist, and this is just an attribute. I will raise HTTP 404, and we don't have to actually call that, you just raise it. And then else, I'm going to return self.post underscore user.post.all. Okay, and we'll save that. Now this is basically just to make sure that when you call the query set for the user post, that the user actually exists, and then you're able to fetch the posts that are related to that user using this check right here, iExact. Continuing on, we're going to do one more method here, def, and we'll say get underscore context data, and that's going to be self, and then some keyword arguments. And then we'll say context is equal to super get underscore context data, and then pass in keyword arguments. And then we'll say context post underscore user is equal to self.post underscore user. And then I'm finally going to return that context. That way I'm just returning the context data object, essentially connected to whoever actually posted that specific user. Okay, moving along, we have a couple more classes. These are much simpler than this one. This is probably the most complicated class that we had to deal with, just connecting those posts to those users. Next one we want to do is just a post detail. So we'll say post detail, and that's going to take in that select related mixin as well as a generic detail view. Essentially, this is the detail view when you click on a singular post, and what happens is we just connect this models.post, and then we'll say select related, and we're going to connect it with some foreign keys, and this is just going to be the user and the group that this post detail belongs to. And then after this, we're going to say def get the query set self, and then we'll say query set is equal to super dot get query set, and we'll explain all this in just a second. And then we will say return the query set, and we're going to filter it. So what are we going to filter this? We want to check that the user's username is exactly equal to where self keyword arguments get that username. Kind of similar to what we were doing before with this get query set. So again, what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, get the query set for that actual post, and then I want you to filter where the username that we're going to pass in is equal to the username, and it's going to have to be exactly the user's username, essentially just that username off that models object. And I know this sort of syntax can be really strange at first, those double underscores, and this sort of object model, that object relation model that Django has, but definitely check out the documentation. This can help a lot. Essentially just go through those examples. They have really well written documentation there. Go through it, and this will become clearer and clearer as you see more and more examples of this. It's definitely really weird at first, these sort of customized get query calls. Okay, moving on, we have two more classes we want to create for those views, and that is a create post and a delete post. So for the create class or create post, we're going to say create post, and this will have a login required mixin, a select required mixin, or select related mixin, I should say, and then generic create view. Then let's give some extra lines here. And inside of this, we'll start off by saying fields. So the fields I want someone to be able to edit is just the message of the actual post, and then the group that the post belongs to. And then the model can be models self.post. And we just want to check if the form is valid, so we'll say def form_valid as a method, and this will take in self and the form, and then this will be self.object is equal to form.save, and we're going to set commit equal to false, and then say self_object.user and set that equal to the request user. So the actual user that's at the request, and then we will say self.object save. And essentially what this is just to connect the actual post to the user itself. And then once we're done with that, we'll say return super form_valid, pass in form. Save. And then finally we have the delete post, which will be another class called delete post, and that's going to be a login required mixin, a select related mixin, and another generic view, in this case the delete view. Get some more lines in here, come back up, and we'll connect this to a model, so that'll be models.post. Then we will also say select related and set that equal to the user and group as we've just been doing before. That needs to be in a string. And then we're going to say success URL, and that's just going to be reverse lazy, and that's going to go to posts all. So you can use that URL template tagging. So basically what that means is once you delete a post, well, what's a success URL? So if you hit yes, I confirm the delete, it should take you back somewhere. Reverse lazy, and we'll just go back to all the posts. Then we're going to say def a get query set self, and then we'll say the query set of this is equal to super get query set, and then I'm going to return query set that I just made, that variable, and I'm going to filter out where the user ID is equal to self.request user.id. Okay, so that's the parameter in for the filter. And then finally, I'm going to have a delete method on this self args keyword arguments. And that's going to be the messages success, and we'll say self.request, and we'll send in post deleted. And then we're going to return super delete. And you can look up a lot of these kind of convention calls in the documentation for a delete view. A lot of these things, they're really just chosen by the convention, that delete view. So delete view kind of expects, if you want to mess around with what happens after you click delete, it has a delete method for it, or a get query set. So a lot of these things, we're not actually making up the terms or methods or variables to use. A lot of them just come with the class-based views. So we've already seen a couple of them, things like model or success URL. Methods like delete are just on top of that kind of thing. Okay, so that should be everything we need for our actual views.py. And what we need to do next is link them up to our URLs in our posts.py. So let's come over to the posts folder, open up urls.py here, and then fill out the URLs we need. We'll say from django.clnf for configuration, URLs, import URL. And then I'm also going to say from.import views, and let's give this app a name of posts. That way we can use that in our template tags. Then we'll say URL patterns is equal to, and essentially now it's just time to make all the list of URL patterns. And I'm going to collapse the directory tree to get a little more room here. And we'll start off with a regular expression. So for the actual, if you just go to yourdomainname.com/posts, we'll say $, and this will just give views.postlist.as_view, and we'll just give this the name all. So simple view there. Then the next URL we can do for a new post. So if someone wants to make a new post, that will just go to post/new $, and then this will be the create post. So views.createPost as a view, and the name is equal to create. Then after that, what we're going to do is for the user posts. So when you click on a user, you can see a list of all their posts. And then we also need to do the post detail and delete post. So let's start with that user post. So we'll say URL, and in here again, regular expression, and this will be by, or honestly whatever you want to call that, and then we will use some regular expressions here, which is just going to look similar to what we just used in the past. Question mark, P, and then open tag username, close tag, and then we'll use another regular expression, minus backslash W plus, essentially just matches up the username. So when you go to yourdomainname.com, post slash by slash whose ever username, then we can actually have views dot user posts as view. And we'll give this the name for user, since I believe that's what we've been using in the template. So we'll say for underscore user. And then we want just one more, or two more actually, the post detail. So it's actually going to look really similar to this as far as a regular expression. So I'm going to copy this entire string, and this shows all the user posts. So then we're going to do one more slash, and we're going to copy and paste this. Actually, let's just write it out so we can see more detail here. We'll say parentheses, question mark, P, open tag, PK, close tag, backslash D plus, forward slash $sign. And then that's views, post detail, as a view, and we'll give this the name single. And then the last one is just if you want to delete something, it'll be delete, and then we want to connect to the actual primary key here, because we already know it's going to be the user itself that is going to be able to delete them. So we'll say delete that primary key, and then $sign, and then views.delete post as a view with the name is equal to delete. Perfect. So those are the URLs we need. So we definitely did a lot here, and there's a lot of new stuff that we haven't actually seen yet. Whoops, let me make sure that says from. There we go. So let's quickly review everything we just did. We'll start off with the views. So in post views.py, what we ended up doing is essentially a bunch of imports that we're going to use later. And we started off a very simple one, just the post list. But remember before that, we wanted user equal to get user model, so we could play around and pass that in if needed. So classed post list. So this shows a list of the posts related to either the user or the group, or both of them really, since the post model has that. Then we have the user post, so that's the list view for a specific user's post. And then we have this get query set method, which essentially just checks where the username is exactly equal to the get username of who's ever logged in right now. So you can see here that user object that we set up, the get user model, this is where we could use it. So that's the ORM that Django provides, that object relational model or mapper. Then we have the get context data, which allows us to grab that post user and then return the context dictionary off of that. And then we have the post detail. So when you select a particular post, there's a detail view on it. Again, just connecting to the post model and select related. This should be in a string. So good catch there. Save that. And then we have the create post. And again, that's just when you want to create a post, the message in the group. And then we check if the form is valid. And then we have delete post. Very simple thing, except we added a little more on this delete method to actually return something saying the post was deleted. Okay, so finally after that, we said urls.py and just matched up all the URL patterns that we just created. Definitely check out the documentation for a lot of these class-based views if you were having trouble with some of these methods such as the get context data or get query set. The documentation really explains those thoroughly. Those are methods that you're going to use as you get more advanced in Django. A lot of the class-based views, you can use them without these additional methods. In fact, we've seen that already in the past, especially with that groups application. It's only when you start getting more advanced or want certain functionality that you'll end up adding on with extra methods. A lot of the functionality you'll be using for a lot of your own projects, probably at the start, are going to work just fine with class-based views. Okay, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture.